Hey guys, it's been a couple weeks since we've done a Pickled Dragon Unscripted. Sorry about that. Just been extremely busy. I took a whole week off work to write, get a real big jump start on Days of Light 3. Um, it's been quite an undertaking. I mean, writing higher level adventures is always a little more difficult, and by higher I mean eight. Once you get to like seventh, eighth, ninth, it takes a lot more testing to put together an adventure that is balanced and interesting. Um, because you have to plan for a number of different um, class combinations, and some groups have 7 players, some groups have 4 players. So balancing becomes a real issue, and you kind of there is a certain amount of expecting the DM to balance an encounter. If they read an encounter from an adventure and they say, I've got 3 players and they're inexperienced, they may tweak the adventure a bit. But with Days of Light 3, it's very story driven. So with a lot of sandboxy elements. So it's a massive undertaking, and I'm on the last chapter of it now. I think it's 7 chapters long, and so, but I do have something to share. I get asked all the time how I handle world building, and so I pulled out some old maps, and these, I don't know if is that going to focus. These maps were made about what? Well, I guess 30 years ago. Um, Markers and crayons and colored pencils and stuff. So this was my original world concept. They kind of latched together like that. So this would be the known world, if you will. And then this was kind of a far eastern Badlands area, unexplored and uninhabited by civilized folk, and but rife with adventure. So, what I actually started with before I even made this map, there's a city there in the center called Crossroads. And I knew when I was building this world, I wanted the party to be in kind of a central location where they could reach virtually everything that they needed to reach. And so, and at the time, I didn't want to start from scratch, so I took the village of Hamlet, and I took that map, and you can kind of see here. We took the map, and when Gary Gygax wrote the Village of Hamlet, he put a number of NPCs in here, a large number, but he didn't really flesh them out all that much. And I know that I've read people kind of knock him for that. There's a lot of empty content, I've heard them say. There's just a lot of people with no story. And I looked at that as an opportunity. So, I'm not a great artist, so I took this map, and you can see that my players added on. You can see there's towers and castles, other structures that aren't in the original map. So as they lived in this village, they kind of grew it and made it their own, and created a number of structures. This wasn't even the final one. This was, you can see that right there says Temple of Osiris. It used to be the Church of St. Cuthbert, but somehow one of my players, I don't remember how, but they took it over. But in any case, the town grew and evolved, and the players were able to make their mark on it, which was something you don't necessarily see in today's editions. I guess adventures are written differently now. But when I world built, I just started with the village, and I started fleshing out these NPCs and started giving everybody a story, adventure hooks. What are these people up to? what problems do they have? What problems do the village have as a whole? What dangers lurk? And of course, you start with the boathouse, and the players got to explore out from there. But once I had that village going and the players started growing levels and I knew that they were going to expand out, I started just sketching ideas, and it evolved into this. And honestly, these 3 sections of map, and I wish I still had my original sketches, because the 3 sections of map evolved over time. So I started with this, and it just continued to grow from there. So I just started adding on pieces. I didn't try to create a giant world all at once. I started small, and then I let it grow from there. I need a jumping off point for this adventure. Oh, well, this is a perfect spot for a city, and kind of decide how big is the city going to be, who's in charge. And you just kind of let it grow from there. Because a lot of times, you add cities, but the party may not stay there very long, or may not even enter that city ever in your campaign, but it's there, and you don't want to spend too much time on details where the party is not going to touch it. That's one that can become so daunting if you try to tackle everything at once. So you kind of plot out, I think my party is going to go this direction. I need, a set number of NPCs. I need them to be able to rest. I need them to have people to interact with. And so I built this world. This is my first incarnation of Adarith, starting from there. So it's kind of a cool thing I still have. 30 years ago, it's crazy. It was, seemed like a long time ago, but at the same time, I can remember like yesterday, putting all this together. And it was a lot of fun back then. But anyway, questions. One thing that would interest me is how to be original. How do you entertain your players that have seen everything with the vast ocean of fantasy stories, video games, TV series? How do you come up with a good storyline without everyone thinking, hey, that seems familiar? That's a tough one. It's kind of hey, the Simpsons have already done it. 1,000 episodes of the Simpsons, they're bound to have done everything. And that's true. I mean, you will, I think every DM has that problem, since D&D came out, more and more content has churned out, more movies. As the genre became more and more popular, we begin to see more stories coming out, and it's very difficult. But I think that the big thing is that as long as you start your story and you start unfolding it, you're bound to have overlap in places. And as long as everyone's having fun, that's okay. It doesn't matter. But if you make it your own, if you give the story your own personal touches, and unconsciously or unconsciously, you may hit on some already done topics, but I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that at all. In fact, you might even take something that from a movie or something. You said, I wish they had done this in the movie instead. Well, go ahead and do that in your game. In Days of Light 3, one of the early chapters is a take on my John Carpenter's The Thing. I statted out The Thing, and I've got the whole thing unfolding, but in D&D style. So I just don't think you should stress too much about that. So I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on handling hexcrawls and overland exploration in 5e, specifically how to avoid streamlined mechanics from removing the tension and mystery. So by hexcrawls, what he means is like the Isle of Dread here. You can see it's broken up into hexes. Characters are going to explore around. You can see that the publishers put their numbers on the map, and they put set encounters in there. And what I generally do is I try to script out more encounters within there. if I know that Area 37 is a dragon or something, maybe in the areas around it as the party goes there, I'll have something, a burned out village from a dragon attack, or just build stories around each encounter. Or if there are no provided encounters, build them myself. I wouldn't rely too much on one dice roll after another. Or if you want to use dice rolls after another, the party can think that they're rolling randomly, but it doesn't mean that it actually has to be random. So just, build stories around your encounters. If the party is marching to investigate a ruin where they've heard rumors of a lich or something, maybe they encounter lots of undead along the way, or evidence that takes them towards their goal, but maybe it gives them a clue as to what they're going to find there. So the drive to get to the location, the journey itself, can be part of the story, and it should be. I personally hate spells like Tiny Hut and Magnificent Mansion. I think party members should be stuck out in the wild trying to rest amongst the mosquitoes and biting insects and howling wolves. I hate the idea, and in fact, in most of my campaigns, I ban those spells. I hate spells like teleport. Just the journey to get to your location should be part of the story. But that's my style. You can do it however you wish. So, another question. How do you deal with a party that has mismatched goals? Well, I personally would just let the players work it out. One player or another is going to, take the lead probably and say, no, this is what we're going to do. But I definitely would just let the players work it out for themselves, because if you want to interject, it could feel heavy-handed. It could feel like, you're railroading your players, and that, I don't know, maybe you got this great story in mind. You really want to get them on path. Well, then you need to build really compelling mini stories to get them back on track if they've wandered off the path. Or if they've wandered off the path, just rewrite that new path as part of the story. It's not difficult to do, but I would definitely let the party handle that. Let the players work it out amongst themselves, because that can make for your great inner party dynamic. I always think that that's interesting when party members when their different personalities clash and they've got to work it out. I think that's great. I love that stuff, as long as it's good fun. You don't want it to get personal or anything. But yeah. So those are some good questions. I wish I had time for more. As I said, I've been extremely busy. I'm really, really trying to get Days of Blight 3 out. And it's been quite a struggle because of how long it is. Days of Blight 1 and 2, they're both on the DM's Guild. And I always hear great things about those two adventures, and they're played all the time, and I get people constantly asking me where the third one is, and I'm working on it, guys. It was supposed to be out last year, but of course, this wheelchair thing happened, the broken back, and all that good stuff. That kind of sucked. But something else to share. Kelsey Dione, the Arcane Library, and I, we released the Monstrous Lexicon, which I've shown off before. It's a book of monsters we designed. Well, Bear's Head Miniatures has been doing some of the monsters from the books for us. So you can get the boil toad. It shoots these disgusting pussy boils out its back, and Cerberus, and there's a number of different miniatures in here. I wish I'd assembled them. There's different minotaurs, the Gruleshi, which are these elephant folk, and Wendigos, and all kinds of cool stuff. But check out Bear's Head in Miniatures. I really, really enjoy working with them. Phil is a super nice guy. He hand sculpts everything. So it's old school for sure. It's good stuff. So with that, I'm going to say happy gaming, and of course, as always, be heroic.